What a fun show we had on a Friday, TexAgs radio. The Rewind, we talked to Olin for an hour and a half. Kevin had a big influence on the show, whether we wanted it or not. Jamie standing in here as security detail. We had Aaron Torres on, talked a lot of Aggie basketball. Are y'all trying to mimic the way that I talk with my hands?
You're a hand talker, and I don't know how
hands.
I feel about it.
Who else did we have on today?
Kay Nagley.
Kay Nagley. Talked about
Richard Zane.
Oh, yeah. Richard was in here.
Olin. We got a lineup today.
Mark French.
The
important ones are Mark French.
Yes.
And Aaron Torres.
Yep.
Everybody else, not as important.
That's okay.
Don't listen to that, Olin. I think you're important. And Richard, maybe not. Here's the rewind. Nick has a graphic made, really informative, right? And we're looking at A&M's NCAA tournament resume. If you're watching on TV, you can see it. If you're listening to us, a net rank of 43. And then it goes down through their quad wins. And you want to have as many quad 1 and quad 2 wins as you can. Right now, A&M's got 4 quad 1 and quad 2 wins and 4 losses. They're 4-4 against quad 1, quad 2, and they are 10-2 against quad 3 and quad 4. Those bottom 2 numbers really don't do much for your tournament resume unless you got a bunch of losses against those. But they've got to find a way, I think, and they can because of what the back half of the SEC schedule looks like, OB. Mm-hmm. But those quad 1, quad 2 numbers, probably they got to tick up a little bit. They have to.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more quad 2 games, you know. But A&M is all A&M has to do to make the tournament from here on out is just be who they are now.
Well, I thought Billy brought up a great point yesterday whenever I had him on. And we've talked so much about the final conference record. What do they need to get to be comfortably in the NCAA tournament? Is it 13-5? Is it 12-6? Whatever the number is. And he goes, you forget that last year they were 9-9 in the conference and they almost got in. Now, a lot of that had to do with what they did in the tournament, right?
But last year they were like 15-2 coming into conference play last year, something like that. They had a win over Notre Dame. They had some other pretty decent wins. This year they don't have any really good non-conference wins. Maybe Loyola, maybe DePaul, but you didn't have that Wofford stain on your resume last year like you do this year.
Yeah, I think there's opportunities in the upcoming schedule for you to very much erase any kind of lingering effect the Wofford loss.
Oh, I think that's erased.
Last thing I want to see, and I'm going to see it today, I'm going to watch a Jim Schlossnagle practice, a real one, for the first time as we get ready for baseball season, which is just now 21 days away from opening day. Most polls have A&M preseason top 10. The D1 baseball poll has A&M preseason top 5. I love watching really good coaches run practices, and I think as a coach myself or a wannabe coach myself, I highly value how a coach runs his practice, the efficiency, the intent, the buy-in from players, the creativity, the willingness to work on those fine details and be a stickler for it. How Jim Schlossnagle runs practices is as good as any coach in any sport I've ever seen. I'm more adept at analyzing baseball practices because I've been in a bunch of them and I've organized a bunch of them. But when you go watch an A&M baseball practice, even if you don't know one thing about baseball, you come away and say, those kids got a ton of stuff done in a relatively short amount of time. I'm talking about 90 minutes to 2 hours. But they get so much done in that time, from little small things, starting with glove drills that they do every day, to big picture batting practice, how we execute bunt defenses, double cuts. I love watching all of it. And I'm a nerd in that way. My brain fires most of the time in baseball terms, even though I cover football and now I'm having to talk about basketball. My brain constantly fires on baseball things. And getting able to watch other coaches perform practice at a really high level is something that I love to do. So what I want to see is another Jim Schlossnagle baseball practice as we get ready for what a lot of folks are anticipating to be a very fun baseball season.
I admire Jim Schlossnagle, and I've made it known before that I'm not a baseball guy. I really don't even pay attention to it on the major league level.
Can I ask you one thing?
Yeah.
Did last year's baseball team and season change that for you?
It changed it. I'm only really interested. I would watch a college game before I would watch a major league game, but I'm really, I'm interested in every A&M game. I took my wife on vacation last year. I can't remember if it was April, and we were in Savannah, Georgia.
Did they have any pine trees or anything you could scratch your back on?
I had Irma there, so didn't need them. But anyway, my point is, I was sitting there on vacation and kept checking my phone to see how A&M was doing, and they were actually playing Georgia at that time. So I was keeping up with how they were doing, and I never did that before.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, just perception-wise, they needed a big top 25 win because the previous games they'd won in conference were kind of against the bottom half of the league, you know? And so it's just really big perception-wise. Boots establishing himself as a player of the year candidate. He'll be in the first team or second team all SEC, caliber of player if he keeps it up. And really what it did was it gives you a shot to get to that magic 13-5 number that we've all been discussing, right? So it was a huge win. I can't understate how important it was to go from losing at Kentucky. 4 days later, you're playing at Auburn, and you come out and beat the number 15 team in the country by 15 plus points. It was absolutely phenomenal. No other way around it.
And one of the things I thought the team showed on Wednesday night was a ton of maturity, especially in the second half, managing that game out. I've been saying, Mark, that I think it's going to take a different kind of maturity this Saturday against Vanderbilt. So as a guy that's been in the locker room with Buzz, what do you think these conversations have been like between Wednesday and tomorrow night?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be a consistency message. Buzz is huge on that. Just maintain your everyday habits. He's a habits guy. The routine will stay the same. And I think that'll be the overall message. It's just a message of consistency, blocking out the noise like all coaches say. But also I think Buzz is one of those guys, like after a big win, he'll push harder, right? And so they're going to try to find some growth in some area or some like game within a game. You'll hear him talk about that a lot. He'll just make something up sometimes so that the guys can be more competitive in a certain area. And so I bet you'll see one or two different games within a game, whether that be killing them on the offensive boards or a turnover number that they got to hit. And then at every media timeout, so every 4 minutes when they go to the huddle, they'll be tracking that and it'll be on the whiteboard. And so I bet he comes up with some 2 mini games. And then also just, maintaining the continuity in this forward momentum. We have so much forward momentum with Boots and Wade playing like they are, and just really the entire starting five, and just maintaining that vibe of confidence and aggression.
I'm actually happy that A&M's not playing in this SEC Big 12 Challenge, because with the way they've got things rolling in conference, I feel like a high pressure, a high leverage non-conference game. I'm not saying it would throw Buzz's group off of any kind of momentum, but I kind of like where they're at right now, and I like that they've got SEC play coming off the big win at Auburn. I think it keeps them focused and kind of keeps them on track. So I agree. I love some of the matchups. I'm really intrigued by that Texas-Tennessee one tomorrow, and I know that the slate for you, I'm sure it's going to be a fun day of college basketball. But if you're sitting in our seat here in College Station, you're going, I'm glad it's Vandy tomorrow night and not a Texas Tech or a Baylor.
No, I think that's totally fair. I think that's totally fair. And it's, it's the oldest cliche in sports. It's like when you get things rolling, just keep doing what you're doing. And so, I think you could argue, hey, it would be an opportunity to pick up a nice, resume building win. But then, I could counter that by saying, who's to say what the matchup would have been? You could have gotten Texas Tech, to your point. And all of a sudden, if you lose that game, it's a bad loss on the resume with the way Texas Tech is going. So it's a totally fair point by you, Brauny. And I think the most important thing, and I think not only would you and I agree on this, but I think everybody listening, the main thing is just keep doing what you've been doing if you're Texas A&M basketball, because things are trending up. And the other thing I would say too, and I say this on all the places that I do shows and do hits on, there are a lot of wins to be had in the bottom and the middle of the SEC right now. And so one, it's just great that you're playing well and you're atop the league, but there's also no reason that you can't keep it going, because really You get past Alabama, maybe Tennessee, maybe Kentucky, who obviously is already, A&M's already seen Kentucky. So there's just a lot of wins to be had in this league, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. And so keep the momentum going, whether it's in conference, out of conference, whatever. And to your point, having an out of conference game when you're in the middle of a hot streak could definitely throw things for a loop.
Everybody's going to this 13-5. A&M's got to get to 13-5 to make the tournament. I think that's true. I think if they're 13-5, they're going to get in. But I also think, kind of depending on what that 13-5 looks like, they may be able to get to it at 12-6. Let me ask you this, AT: who's the best team in college basketball?
I think it's the Alabama Crimson Tide right now today. And this is a long season, man. This is a long season. And look, you don't have to look any further than my alma mater, UConn, which beat Alabama by 12, 15 points, something like that in November. By the way, UConn beat Iowa State, who is tied atop the Big 12 right now by double figures in November. So it's a long season.
Kennedy is worried about our security detail. What do the people, if they're watching this, need to do? You've been given one job. Do it now.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
What do they need to leave in the comments? Mean things or nice things?
Nice things. No. No hate comments, only slay comments.
Like, I don't even know what that means.
Slay.
I enjoyed it. We'll see y'all on Monday.